All right. Well, let's wrap up here. We have one more major topic. We want to get to spotlight for Eagle Garrett, so you guys can kind of hear some of his heart here, and I want to make sure we have some time for him. But real quickly, I just wanted to take a minute. This week was kind of a rough week in the Christian world. Jared Wilson, a pastor that a lot of people knew about from Greg Laurie's Harvest Church in California. He was a really big advocate for mental health and was just a shining star. But this past Monday afternoon, actually took his life and lost that fight to depression here. And this kind of hit home for some of our staff here, with Mr. MATTATO actually knowing this guy directly. So we just wanted to give a few minutes to just kind of be able to talk about that and express that openly in the Christian community. This isn't, I think it's really easy, and sometimes we can get it confused that in the Christian life, we have to put on a happy front, or we have to only talk about positive things, and anything negative or anything that hurts, just kind of sweep it under the rug with, God is good and everything's okay. And it's okay to be real and honest and allow pain and hurt to have a moment of those things here. And so, Matt, I don't want to speak from I know this guy, because I didn't. I had no idea who he was before this, but you had the opportunity to kind of get to know him for a few years, and so
and I did, and so I didn't know him very well. I didn't work with him a lot, and heck, he wasn't even on staff when I was working there. But I met him when I visited back and got to talk to him and everything, and I will say, talking to him, he was the nicest guy, the most generous guy. He'd give you the shirt off his back, and he was a really good preacher. He was really good, but he was so sweet. And it sucked because and of course, I have a lot of, I'm tied with Harvest. I worked there for 3 years. And so I have a lot of friends. So my social media was filled, and I saw it from other people's perspectives too. And no matter what, it sucks. I think that's my biggest word. This whole week sucked. And for me too, is I've been already struggling with stuff, and not I've been sad a lot, because stuff with my dad and all this stuff. And I'm I'm allowed to just be sad. I'm allowed to grieve. I'm allowed to, do this. But my biggest thing is and he even said this, he has a ministry set for dealing with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts, set already for that. And it's if you're allowed to be sad. I was having to explain that to my nephews. It's you're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be mad. You don't have to hide it. But but talk to us about it. We want to be here for you. We want to love on you, and so that's I talk to someone, but yeah, that was the biggest thing, because and Pastor Paul Eaton, who was the spokesperson, I think, on this article, he's the spokesperson for Harvest. He's one of the pastors there, one of the executive guys. And he said, it's something that you see a lot, is he was open about it. He was open about his, his mental health and everything, but it's he was the biggest advocate for it because he dealt with it the most, and so he wanted to help as many people as he could as well, including himself. And so, it sucked that, we lost him, but there's a lot of people that he has impacted too.
Yeah, and I think that doesn't null, just because, again, I think what it reminds us of is of a few things. One, we do live in a fallen and broken world, and it isn't perfect, and we will continue to see the effects of sin play out in this world until we're with Christ again forevermore, right? And so there's that aspect, but I also think it's important that, again, that we don't, people get shaken all the time when a leader or singer or whatever Christian artist that you kind of have in your mind that you look up to, shows that sign of that they're human, that they have struggles of their own, that they have their own doubts. And I think it can shake other people's faith when they really are invested in that person. And I think it's a reminder that as pastors, they are still people. We are, have our own issues and have our own struggles. And so it's important to seek that help. And for all of us to know that, again, it's okay, that Scripture tells us to sit with those and mourn with those who mourn and rejoice with those who rejoice. And it's okay that there is no process of, all right, we got to clean this up really quickly because Christianity has to be perfect, but that we can sit and just be in those moments with those people. Yeah. And so for anybody that's listening or watching, or if you've struggled with this yourself, know that part of why all of us stream and do these things is to be able to be an open resource and community for people to be able to hear and talk. And that's why we have all our DMs open. At least I know for me, and MATTATO, and I'm sure Eagle, I'm pretty positive you can pull any of us aside and we would want to hear from you guys and want to be able to talk about those things. As fun as it is to do games and other stuff, this is important because there is no coming back from these things, you know. And luckily, we at least have the assurance that he knew Christ in that time, and we will see him again one day. And the ministries that God has allowed him to start and impact in this world will continue to impact, and God will still use, even in his absence here on the earth. So just wanted to be able to kind of take a minute and say that. Eagle, I don't know if you had anything for this, but
I mean, I saw the tweet, and I guess I didn't realize until I started reading into it more. Like when I first saw the tweet, because he tweeted out right before he wound up passing that he had a quote in here, and it caught me off guard a little bit because let me see if I can find it in the article. I noticed the tweet, and I think that I actually just saw it retweeted, like when he first originally tweeted out this tweet. I'm trying to find the quote. Let me see if I can find it.
Is it right at the middle? It's loving Jesus doesn't always cure suicidal thoughts. That one? Or are you talking about?
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking for. Yeah. Let's see where. I don't
it's like right under the picture. Yeah, it says loving Jesus doesn't always cure suicidal thoughts. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure depression. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure PTSD. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure anxiety, but that doesn't mean Jesus doesn't offer us companionship and comfort. He always does that.
Yes, and that was the tweet that I saw, and I did not realize what it had. I don't know if I think I just saw the tweet that was retweeted. I didn't see this story until after that, and so I just thought it was a pastor sharing an opinion and a word with people, and so it got me thinking about this whole issue, because we right now in society, if you look at stats and things like that, as far as I understand, anxiety, stress, depression, those are high, at some of the highest levels we've had, you know what I'm saying, that we know of in recent history. And there's big debates about what is feeding into all of that, and the development of, social media and opinions being so accessible, and things
right.
like that all going into play. But then I read the article, and then I found out what happened, and I thought, goodness gracious, man, like if when I first saw his tweet, if let's say that he had just tweeted it and somebody had replied with, out of love, something encouraging, and didn't look at the tweet as being an advice for everyone else, but looked at the tweet as being, he's obviously thinking about something, you know what I mean? Looking at the tweet as being like, I wonder if he himself is struggling with this, and that's why he's tweeting out this statement, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it started making me think, that's where we as a body of believers, we have to really start to, pray for the operation of the Holy Spirit in our lives to help us discern those moments and try to be there for people in ways that we don't even necessarily immediately realize. You know what I mean?
No, for
Being
sure.
able to discern like that, hey, this individual may be going through something right now, and if I just simply reach out to them, or check to make sure they're okay, or see where their heart's at right now, maybe that's what is needed in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And I realized, like, I didn't think about that when I saw the tweet. I just thought, oh, it's a pastor sharing, a tweet, you know what I mean?
Inspirational quote.
Yeah, inspirational quote type of thing. But I didn't know anything about him. And then reading him, obviously we know more about him now because of what happened. Now you had served at the church and been there for 3 years, and had a chance to like interact with him personally and stuff like that. So like this hit you in a different way than it hit me. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that you would have picked up on that either. You know what I mean? And that's where I think we have to realize that, like, our state as humanity right now is kind of developing into a different place than we've been before. And we kind of have to include in our prayer life that God will help direct us towards how we can be in tune with others and help them in ways that, like, we previously might not have ever considered. How can we know when to reach out to people at the right time? How can we love on people at the right time? And it breaks my heart to hear that this happened to him, but then it also makes me think that it's important for us to look biblically at the situation and say, okay, if he was struggling, he was a great minister of truth to people and to help encourage others who are going through what he was going through. But in turn, if he was having some deep-seated struggles behind the scenes that he wasn't opening up to people about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is most likely the case. Like at that point, we also need to be as a Christian family, accepting of when somebody says like, if he was to come and say, hey, you know what, I don't know if I'm in the right place right now to be taking on the stress of the ministry and trying to reach all these other people,
right,
because of my current struggle, and instead I need to focus on how I can get like on the right path that God's got for me, so that I can effectively minister to other people without it potentially leading down to a path of, my own destruction in some way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sadly, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and that kind of, broke my heart in a way to know that like he might have been, he would talk about openly his struggles, but the fact that he was put into this position, a high stress position, a lot of people counting and relying on him, and a lot of expectation, and he probably felt like he would be letting a lot of people down if he was to step away. And that's just an assumption, but at the same time, like I could see that, I could understand that, because when I've been in leadership positions that are much smaller than where he was at, I still felt bad when I needed to step away from that leadership position for whatever reason. And so maybe that introduced some of that extra anxiety or stress into his life that pushed him, further and further down. But I just hope that we can also cultivate a church relationship, among the body of believers, where we let people know it's okay when God's calling you to do something else, or it's okay if you need to take a step back and recharge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Refill up, get refilled with, God's will in your life. So anyway, that's kind of what was on my heart about it.
That's a good word. I think all throughout, my pastoral education, I think one of the biggest things that everyone would say from a teacher perspective who have been pastors before is they go, man, it's really lonely. Like you have to be intentional about seeking outside help, because as a leader in a church, like you're not going to go to the congregation that looks up to you, right? Like, and tell them, like, you're going to look for other people outside of that. And you get so busy and wrapped up in your ministries that sometimes it is hard to look at and talk and find another pastor that can hear you or understand you and get you. And so, yeah, I think that's huge, of any way that as a church culture that we can continue to really look at our leaders as and it doesn't null them. This doesn't take anything away from the work that they've done, that the gifts that God has given them in the word to speak, but it just reminds us that we're all human and that we aren't God, that we all struggle in our own ways. And I think that's like, not his passing is not a good thing, but I think it's a good thing for us to look at and consider and go, man, how can we continue to grow that and be that, what you're saying, Eagle, exactly, a community that supports our leaders and really helps and provides those opportunities, because no one's going to be looking out. Like, everyone probably just saw him and heard of these things and these cries and thought, oh, he's just speaking from experience to help everybody else. Nobody heard it as an actual cry for help of like, man, maybe this guy needs to take a break, or maybe he needs to have a minute where, he does step away. And I think it's really, really easy when you're in ministry and in a leadership role to go, well, clearly God's called me here, so there's no way I'm going to take a break and take a step back from it right now.
And that's like, so I'm not a pastor, but I work at a church full time. Like, I'm in full time ministry, like, and it is, even just for even not being a pastor, it's still kind of like in a leadership role and everything. Like, that's all resonating, and like, even like, I've been so drained these past couple weeks. Like, I took like, and of course being sick didn't help either. Like, but I could have still gone to work. I took like 2 sick days this week, and I was able to recharge, and I was able to like get back into it, because like I just like was visiting. I had to go like fly home to California to say goodbye to my dad, like that goodbye. And do all this, and then the craziness of the ministry, and like just working nonstop, all these, like, we're having a small group start up, I'm to make sure all the tech is there for them, and all this stuff. I'm like, and I like think my body too is like super tired. Like, you're sick now, you need to stay home. Like, you just need to chill out, recharge, and it's like the biggest thing. But another thing is, like, I've reached out to people, like I've reached out to friends, like I got my wife here as my biggest like supporter, but like, even like, I have a guy who, he's one of our pastors, but he's a really good friend, and he had like, he ran a practice down in Florida and a counseling thing, and so I was like, dude, I need to talk. Can I just like, can you be there? Like, I just need to talk to you. And so it's like all these like support groups, like, but don't be afraid to reach out, because that's my biggest thing. Is like the past few years, I worked at Harvest, I worked at all these other ministries, and like there was a time where I was volunteering 7 days a week, like in ministry, like not even collecting a paycheck. Like, it's taxing. Ask for help, get don't be afraid to do it, and don't be afraid to step back too. Like that's my biggest thing right now is like, I feel like I'm the only one that really knows how to run everything. It was like, I have to be able to pass on these reins for just a few days.
I think one of the most encouraging things, especially as I'm transitioning out from, my current church, is that, God reminds me that, hey, the church has ran fine for over 2,000 years without me. And I can take a few weeks or a month or whatever, and God is, who's the head of the church? Is it me or is it God?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's exactly right, you guys. And I hope that, especially with everything that people are dealing with these days, that people will recognize that it's not failing. Like if you're in the ministry hardcore in some way and you're just drained, and pastor burnout is a real thing, and pastors get burnt out, and they might not take it to the extreme in a way where they, take their own life or something like that, but it just drains them completely from the ministry itself. They start going through the motions or things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of different side effects. The reality, though, is you even see pastors that, you hear about the pastor that is unfaithful to his wife or things like that. It would be much better for that pastor, even if he's the pastor of a mega church, to say, you know what, I can't pastor this mega church anymore because my wife and I need to get together, right?
Yeah.
We need to fix us first. And I'm not serving the church properly, because if I wind up going down some road and, I get to a place where I wind up becoming unfaithful to my wife, that's going to be more of a disservice to the church than that pastor saying, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to focus on the important things, and I think that's where we, as a church, we need to encourage that type of forethought in our leadership and in our congregations. What are you doing right now? What's your relationship with the Lord like? But also, are you being real with yourself and realizing that, hey, there might be something that needs attention, and you need to focus on that first. And even in the New Testament, Paul has, he's got a list of things that to pastor a congregation of people, these are kind of the stipulations that he gives us, the guidelines he gives us of what that should look like. And if any of those things are kind of out of order, I think it's more of a service to the church to say, I got to get my house in order first. And that's the best way that I'm going to serve God's plan for my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's very clear from the beginning, God creates the Sabbath, not because he needs rest, but to set it for us. So, hey, it's good to work hard. It's good to do these things, but like, there needs to be that time where, and sadly for most pastors, Sundays is the busiest day. So it's creating that Sabbath, another day for you, and even making it a rhythm in your life of, like what we would do, what we talked about in our church, like not just having one day a week or back-to-back days off, but then having a quarterly thing where you just get away, you go on a retreat, you go spend a day by yourself just to recharge with God, and then like we just did for my senior pastor, we just gave him 10 weeks off where he was out. He had no contact, no communication, nothing. And we just let him go and recharge so that he can come back and do this, for another 8 years after what he's done. So, so to wrap it up, guys, with that, at least, if you need help, if you feel like you're struggling, if you feel like, man, I'm a bad Christian if I talk about this, no, that is just all lies for the enemy. Feel free to reach out to anybody, any one of us, anyone from GMA, anyone from Unashamed, anywhere, there's so many different networks that you can get plugged into right now where there are solid Christian pastors and leaders and people that would love to be able to connect with you and help you. And probably, I think one of Satan's biggest thing is no one's going to understand my stuff because no one's experienced this the way I have. And I think the reality is that you would be surprised at how many different people have struggled with similar things or had same thoughts, and how God has helped them overcome it in those moments to help you do it as well. And so we just want to put that out there and let you guys know that's part of our heart here and why we are on these platforms that we're on.